traveling with, or do you have luggage somewhere else?
No, I ship my luggage home because I'm going to go to El Paso tonight and I'm closing El Paso.
Wait, so where is it? You would take it like UPS or something?
From the hotel, they have FedEx pickup.
Really? Like
Yeah.
a luggage pickup?
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, it's cheaper than, well, because it costs like maybe $25 to ship it, second day, third day, whatever. I don't know whether it gets it.
Right. So from here you're going to El Paso rather than Dallas?
Yes.
We're speaking
I
in
have
closing.
yeah,
What's
closing.
going on now?
Well, we finally got an offer. It looks like we're going to close beginning of July.
Good for you.
I
Boy, I
know.
bet that feels like a weight off your shoulders.
Yes, but it's not a done deal, so I'm trying not to
I won't jinx it. I'll only think good thoughts.
Yeah, no, it's good.
How long has that been?
About 18 months. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Long time.
Yeah.
With a smile or with a serious look?
How about in between? Pensive. There you go.
That was assumed I can think. I mean, come on. Now what are you taking a picture of? That's really weird.
Yeah, you might want to move. Yeah, you might want to move. Take a picture of both our names. Gotta get a picture here of the Wilson Center logo.
Let me take a picture of you.
Been mandated by staff to increase social media.
Ready? Get this onto your face. There you go. One. You've got a horrible shadow on your face. Just sit down.
Sit down. All right.
Much better. There you go. One, two, three. There you go.
Thanks, man. Awesome.
And if you give your Twitter handle to Victoria, Victoria will tweet a picture. She'll take pictures and then and tweet them.
I
out.
will. It's that one right there. 1R at Steer Roundtable. Yeah, 1R. Yeah. Thanks, Victoria. Oh, good to meet you. We've been talking over the phone. Thank you. Thank you for all your help. Thank you for that hotel. Everything worked out well. Can you get a hotel?
Really?
There was. Yes, I do. They said they have it up. Yeah. There was some big conference room when I stayed at the Marriott off of 12th Street. Couldn't get anywhere. It was like $500.
No.
Yeah.
That's awful.
Then we get an embassy room. We got about 1220, 220, 225. The
220, yeah.
220.
We just need to get everybody in here. That's the problem. They're all making bathroom stops, I imagine.
And you're based here, Doug?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I spend a lot of my time in Mexico, but a lot of my time in Texas as well, I have to say.
San Antonio?
Houston more than San Antonio. I mean, I'm in San Antonio maybe 4 times a year. Dallas 3 or 4 times a year, and Houston. Occasional trip down to El Paso or Laredo. You know.
I was spending myself time a lot in Laredo, at least 4 times last month. Just got a lot of activists going on in Laredo. Negative stuff. And it's getting all over the valley too. You have these groups in Brownsville called No LNG and No TV. It's getting bad. Or I never thought that part of the state would have a problem.
Yeah.
We're having some issues. It's job security for me, I guess, but at some point it starts to become a problem.
Exactly.
And then point it that way.
There you go. Let's go.
Cool.
freezing in here, isn't it?
It is. Keep us awake though. We got a good lunch. It's a good lunch because
Yeah, it's nice.
this is almost, you don't want to do this for 2 days. There's so much good.
I
This is the
know.
day and a half.
Problem
There's so
is
much
that
good conversation.
I think it makes sense. I like the fact that we start off with a reception last night. That's good. You can almost sort of do I feel like you can do a reception stroke dinner with speakers and then have
Yes.
a full day the next day.
Yeah.
The problem with 2 days is that you see such a high drop off in terms of assistance on the second day, attendance on the second day.
Yes,
but,
and I mean, if you do it like you do a lunch the first, so you go noon through 4 or 5, and then you do till 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock the next day, where it gives time for people to get out.
Right.
Because at this point, if you had another day, you might as well stay an extra day and carry it till noon tomorrow.
Yeah, true.
You know what I mean?
True.
You've got such good speakers. I don't think you'd have a problem with people staying. But I get.
I mean, another thing that we could do, and is that we would choose some of the speakers and do a follow-up, like an event at the end of this. We'd go up to the hill and we'd actually do an event there.
What was the reception last night?
It was on the hill, but it wasn't. It was just a social event. So, but for example, it'd be interesting to get somebody like Corona up onto the hill, and you'd get the staffers in. You probably wouldn't get the congressman, but
No. You've had a good group of speakers today.
yeah, it's been good. So. All right, I think we should ought to kick it off, okay? Yeah, you ready? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Glad to see that some of you made it back after the lunch and into this lovely warm room that we're sitting in right now. We're going to be talking about energy in this panel, and it seems as though the Ronald Reagan building is using as much energy as it possibly can to cool down things for us here today. I'm delighted to have with me Omar Garcia, who is the president of the South Texas Energy and Economic Roundtable, or STEER. He facilitates communication, education, and public advocacy surrounding the production of energy resources in South Texas. Omar is a recognized industry leader, expert on many different areas of the sector. We also had on the program to appear Tom Tunstall, but unfortunately Tom got stuck in Texas yesterday because of Storm Bill. Is that what it was that went through? I think yes, Bill. And so unfortunately he wasn't able to make it here. But luckily, Chris Wilson reminded me that I know something about energy, so I will be able to add some comments if needed at any point. Without any further ado, Omar, I wonder if you wouldn't mind taking us through your presentation. Then I will add some comments, and then we'll open it up for a Q&A.
Thanks, Duncan. I want to thank the Wilson Center for allowing me to come speak to you. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the oil and gas industry in South Texas and how it's affecting the border region in Texas, the dynamic growth we've seen of the Eagle Ford Shale. So just to get started, so what is STEER? I promise you I didn't come from San Antonio to talk about cattle, that I can assure you. But it is the acronym for the South Texas Energy and Economic Roundtable. We are a nonprofit trade association that focuses 100% on South Texas. We were founded by the now 16 largest operators in the Eagle Ford Shale. You see the names behind you. We're unique in the sense that we're a nonprofit that doesn't lobby. We don't focus on Austin and we don't focus on D.C. Our mission is to work 100% with the locals in South Texas. As you might imagine, with the huge economic impact that the Eagle Ford Shale and the oil and gas industry had on South Texas, people wanted a clearinghouse of who to work with, whether it was roads, workforce, infrastructure, the environment. They wanted somebody to work with. So in steps STEER. So number one was to connect industry with the stakeholders in South Texas. Number two is to be an education resource. There's so much information. Every day I'm sure you read an article about the oil and gas industry. So it's our job to work with the media, both local, state, and federal. Just to put that in perspective, last year we did over 100 media interviews. So for a small regional trade association, that's a lot. Year to date, we're I think at 45 already. So a lot of attention still on the oil and gas industry in South Texas. Number three is just to be advocates for the industry, promote all the great things that they're doing in South Texas, promote all the great things they're doing to protect the environment and the residents of South Texas. So that's kind of STEER in a nutshell. Here's a list of our other members. Jesse Hereford, who you heard from earlier today, is a key member of STEER with SMB Infrastructure, so I wanted to give a plug to Jesse. He's been great to work with. But let's talk a little about the economic impact and how it affects the border regions in South Texas. So what is the Eagle Ford Shale? The Eagle Ford Shale was named after a town southeast of Dallas where the shale rock first appeared. If any of you have ever been to Austin, especially on the northwest side, where you see kind of that white limestone rock on the side, that is called the Austin Chalk. That is a shale play that is below, it is on top of the Eagle Ford Shale, but that gives you an idea of what that rock looks like. It's approximately 50 miles wide and 400 miles long. And below, you've got the 15-county region where there's actually active drilling going on. So the Eagle Ford Shale has 15 active counties where there's active drilling. And then you've got the 6 counties that surround it where a lot of the economic development is going in. Currently, you're seeing more and more drilling on the Eagle Ford Shale going all the way north to College Station. So we're looking at probably 25 or 26 active counties where there's drilling right now in South Texas and the Texas region. So let's talk about a little bit about the economic benefit for South Texas as a whole. Dr. Tunstall, as Duncan mentioned, who could not make it today, we commissioned him to do the study in 2013. It was an economic impact study, and of the 21 counties that I mentioned, the economic benefit in South Texas was $87 billion in 2013, and supported almost 155,000 full-time jobs. Those are 2013 numbers. This is a region that had not seen much growth in the last 25 years. So it has taken South Texas and made it a dynamic energy powerhouse and an economic powerhouse. We never saw this type of growth in South Texas. And trust me, my previous career was economic development, and we never dreamed of this type of economic development in South Texas. We feel that the 2014 numbers would be even bigger. But given the current layoffs and the current market climate we see ourselves in, we're probably not going to commission a full-blown study, but we pretty much think the 2014 numbers were just as big. The last thing about that is the $2.2 billion that stayed in South Texas. That's school districts, that's counties, that's municipalities. That's money that is allowing these communities to reinvest themselves and change the landscape forever because of what has happened in the oil and gas industry in the Eagle Ford Shale. Now, to bring it really towards the border, and if you look at 3 counties, you look at Webb County, which Laredo being the county seat. You look at Dimmitt, with Carrizo Springs being the county seat, and Maverick County with Eagle Pass being the county seat. Just those 3 counties alone in 2013 had an economic impact of $13.7 billion and over 22,000 jobs. This is with the exception of Laredo in Webb County, this is a very rural area that had not seen any growth. I mean, their biggest economic drivers and industries were tourism, agriculture, hunting, transportation, and logistics. So this has really transformed it, and not only in the oil and gas sector, but some of the spin-off jobs in medical, in the retail sector that have added a lot of growth to this region. I don't know if you've ever had the pleasure of driving in South Texas, but there's nothing out there until you get to certain communities. It is rural. You can drive, from San Antonio to Laredo is 2.5 hours, and there's nothing there. But now you're seeing these small communities get national retail that we never thought would be imaginable, whether it's a Taco Bell, whether it's a Chili's, whether it's a home improvement store such as Lowe's. These national chains that are now coming to South Texas is a direct result of the oil and gas industry and the population boom that this border region is experiencing because of this industry. I know the border is booming for a lot of other sectors, but the oil and gas industry has played a significant role in helping with some of this growth. The tax base has grown exponentially. We were at a conference 2 weeks ago, and the county judge from Dimmitt County said, we're having problems. What are we going to do with some of this excess money? They've never had this excess money before. They never had the money to invest in roads, to invest in new schools, new parks, new libraries. This is really, really changing the quality of life in a predominantly very poor area. This is an area that, the poverty level is very high. Unemployment is very high. But now, because of this industry, you're seeing a lot of people being employed, not only in the oil and gas, but again in some of those spin-off sectors that have come about because of the Eagle Ford Shale. There's a picture of the Eagle Ford Shale. Kind of looks like a Nike swoosh. You see the big lights in San Antonio. You see Laredo to the southwest. But what you don't see is the lights across into Mexico and the shale play that exists across the Rio Grande River. This is an opportunity for additional growth in South Texas. This is an opportunity for Mexico as well, too, for more jobs. This is a huge deal for us once the reform is finalized and we get back to a climate where drilling and exploration is going to be possible, drilling in Mexico is going to have a profound effect along the border. You have some communities gearing up for it already, Eagle Pass being one of them. They're doing a great job of planning. If there was little infrastructure in South Texas, you can imagine there's probably no infrastructure on the other side of the border. So whether it's pipelines, whether it's just getting sites available to drill, electricity, power lines, infrastructure, water, sewer, you name it, all is going to be required to drill in Mexico. So that's something we're gearing up for. Those 2023 estimates, those were estimates based on prices of oil in 2014, but you're still seeing a big economic impact 8 years from now. 137.4 billion, 196,000 full-time jobs. So you're still seeing a lot of growth in this. And so when we talk about, as we travel South Texas and we've traveled the country talking about the oil and gas industry, everybody asks, how long is this going to last? And I'm only talking about South Texas. How long is this shale development going to last? You know, there's a lot of estimates that this could last for another 10 to 15 years. That's not even including the drilling in Mexico. But a couple of things will bring sustainability to the region. One of the biggest is lifting the ban on oil exports. That will help us compete on the global market. That'll bring more jobs and continue drilling for years to come. Number two will be continued accelerating the permits on LNG plants along the Texas coast. You've got several in Freeport, you've got 2 in Corpus, and you've got 5 that are being talked about in Brownsville. Well, that gas is coming from the Eagle Ford Shale. And again, when we talk about sustainability, continue the drilling and piping that gas to the Gulf Coast will be huge for more jobs and continued growth in this sector. Technology. There are shale plays below the Eagle Ford Shale. And with technology, new technology coming about every day, when the economics make sense, we may be able to drill below the Eagle Ford Shale, which will take years and years to complete. So those are 3 big items that will help bring sustainability not only to South Texas, but to the border region as well too. Just to give you a current overview of where we are, to put it in perspective with the current market conditions, you know, last year we had over 200 rigs. Right now we still have 125 rigs. So you're still seeing a lot of activity in Texas. The border region, Dimmitt and Webb have had a lot of activity continue, even with prices where they're at. A lot of the rigs are in Webb, in Dimmitt, and Karnes County. So you're still seeing the sweet spots of the Eagle Ford Shale are still seeing lots of job growth and lots of activity. The Eagle Ford is producing about 1.6 million barrels per day. If you look at what the Eagle Ford is producing, 1.6, in West Texas, the Permian Basin, about 3.5. When you combine that, that's more oil produced than every OPEC country except Saudi Arabia coming out of Texas. More oil coming out of Texas than every OPEC country except Saudi Arabia. That is a phenomenal number that's going to help us with energy independence and, again, more growth in the region, especially the border region. Just really quickly, I touched upon a little bit about the opportunities that have come about because of the oil and gas. You know, when this oil play started in 2009, it was all about man camps and RV parks. Now we've built homes. We've gone into subdivisions. We've gone into permanent housing with apartments. This is happening along the border region. Whether it's in Dimmitt County, Webb, or Maverick, you're going to continue to see this. You're going to continue to see more permanent housing as exploration begins in Mexico. More medical facilities. These hospitals along the border are reinvesting. They're bringing in more staff to keep up with the demand. So these are all positive things because of the oil and gas industry. And some of these I mentioned before, the retail, medical, the rail, the schools, these are all a direct result of the oil and gas industry. So I'd ask you guys to go to our website, steer.com, follow us on Facebook and Twitter. We've got lots of great information that we post daily, and certainly the border region is something that my member companies value. It's something that they're looking at very closely. They're going to continue to invest in, but I'll leave you with this, is that one of the challenges that we face is workforce. Workforce in and around the border region and throughout Texas as it relates to our industry. We have got to get our high school kids excited about this industry, and it's something that we're going to take on this year, going into the middle schools, going into the high schools, and we've got a program together where we will be talking about all the opportunities that exist in this industry, not only for someone with a high school diploma, somebody with a 2-year degree, a college degree, and a graduate degree. We need everybody, and we need all the skill sets. So something we'll be working on this year as we look towards the future of economic development along the border region as it relates to our industry.
Thank you, Omar. Thank you very much for that. I'd like to follow up with a few comments about to try to dovetail with what Omar's been saying about the prospects for Mexico, because post energy reform in Mexico, a lot of people have said that there are many opportunities in the oil and gas sectors in Mexico, and people have recognized that Mexico has the 6th largest shale gas reserves in the world. I think it's 9th in terms of the shale oil or tight oil reserves in the world, and so they say, well, this is a potential boom. And, we've seen what's happened in Texas. We've seen how, we know how the Eagle Ford extends across the border. We don't have a clear idea about where, the sweet spots are in that, but we know that the formation extends across the border. And so a lot of people are saying this is the great opportunity. In fact, a number of states have already put themselves forward as saying, we want to be the shale capital of Mexico. The opportunity is certainly there, and for many of the reasons that Omar has said. It's not just about the oil production. It's not just about the employment. It's about exciting things like revenues for local governments that can really be transformative. And, it's a great problem to have when you have too much money to spend. But I think there's a number of reasons why we need to temper our enthusiasm for shale development on the Mexican side of the border, or at least to actually have a longer time horizon on this. I spend a lot of my time doing research, talking to people, and giving presentations about the Mexican energy sector. And there's an emerging consensus amongst experts in the in this area that, in fact, shale in Mexico is going to take a little bit more time to develop. And the reasons will be obvious to a lot of you. But, the first one that most people, go to immediately is say, well, it's northern Mexico, therefore, it's dangerous. And I always come back and I say, well, yeah, but look at the places where the oil and gas industry does business around the world. They actually know how to deal with those things. And they say, well, yeah, but these are a lot of the smaller companies. And then you actually speak to some of the smaller companies. And there are reservations. But in fact, one company who's been active in Mexico for a long time as a service contractor for Pemex in northern Mexico, drilling shale wells for Pemex, says that, in fact, the problem isn't that big. What you face is a situation where you have every day a couple of guys come up to your compound and they say, we're from the Zetas and we'd like $10,000. And you say, okay, are you really from the Zetas? And they say, well, we're from the Zetitas, the little Zetas, okay? And they say, well, how can we help you? You say, well, we know that you guys are the oil industry and we want a lot of money from you. And after you sort of talk to them for a little while, you send them away with a couple of bottles of water and a packed lunch, and they're generally quite happy. Every now and again, you get a more difficult situation, and that's when you call in your security team. So the security concern is something which is going to cost you money, but it's not actually going to be a showstopper. It's not going to stop you from investing there. It is a concern, but it's not something that's going to turn away big business. Second issue that some people pull up is the question of water. And I think it's a crucial question, particularly in northern Mexico. We all know about the drought that's hit Texas and northern Mexico over the past decade. Of course, the recent huge rainstorms that we've experienced sort of turning that situation around, but we'll see how quickly the groundwater is replenished. And of course, it's something that we have to prepare for in the future. A couple of years ago, when I was driving through Coahuila with representatives of the state government, you look around and it was beyond brown. It was definitely into the gray area now because the drought had been going on for so long. And I asked the guys, I said, so, what are farmers doing right now? And he said, well, they're not farming. And I said, and what are you doing in terms of building infrastructure to sort of satisfy the need for water in the future? And they kind of looked at me with blank faces. Now, what you've seen in Texas is there have been a lot of conversations about water use in the shale sector. And in fact, when you actually dig down, you realize that shale is responsible for only a tiny percentage of all water use in the state. But we all recognize it does use a lot of water, and water is precious. So the industry has become incredibly effective at developing new technologies, recycling water, using grey water, using saline water from under the ground that couldn't be used anywhere else. This innovation that's taken place to deal with water is one of the most impressive things that I've seen actually in the industry. And I have great faith that, of course, those same techniques will be used or be able to be used in northern Mexico. But in northern Mexico, you do have that extra problem, which is that water is already under great stress in that part of the country. And you do not have a state government or local governments that have been able to provide that basic service for a lot of the inhabitants there anyway. So this needs to be a project which is taken on by the industry, by the Mexican government, and by local and state governments, so that in fact some kind of solution can be discovered. And just as a little plug, we just commissioned a study on water use in Coahuila. To see what would be the overlap between sort of shale development and water uses in other sectors. And I know that other folks in this room are carrying out sort of similar studies at this point in time. I mentioned local authorities, and I'd say that this is what sort of the third factor that I think is a very important one when understanding why shale won't sort of move very, very quickly in Mexico. One of the things in South Texas is you've had very, very responsive local authorities, and still it hasn't been able to keep up with the demand. You know, local authorities who have got this extra revenue have been willing to put in infrastructure, build roads, etc. In northern Mexico, it's going to be tough to find the same kind of counterpart. The federal government will be able to do some of it. The state government will be able to do some of it. But local governments in Mexico, as most of us in this room know, are not the most reliable partners. And so dealing with those local governments, I think, is going to be a real challenge. At the local level, you also got to come across the question of social license. I mean, it's one of the things that you deal with on a daily basis, Omar. Trying to get the buy-in of local communities. Now, in places like Texas, where you have landowners who actually own these subsoil resources, then there's an economic benefit there. That's something you can work with. It doesn't mean that the community will buy in, but it is a huge help. In Mexico, I think we're going to see a different situation. We're going to see a lot of potential conflict over the development of shale resources, particularly because it's the state that has the right to the subsoil resource. And so working out some way of dealing with this in an effective and efficient manner will be crucial. And I think we can take some of our guidance from what's happened in energy projects in other parts of Mexico. The example that I always like to cite is something which is coming out in one of our forthcoming publications, which is about wind development in southwestern Mexico. Wind companies went into southwest Mexico in the state of Oaxaca, and they went in saying, look, we're a green industry and we're going to provide jobs, we're going to put in infrastructure, and we're going to pay rents to the landowners. And they went in rather naively. They paid different amounts of rents to different landowners. The landowners talked to each other. Social conflicts emerged. Eventually, some of these wind parks were blockaded and shut down by local communities. In another case, a beautiful example, the company decided to talk to the local mayor and said to him, so listen, we want to make things right with the community. How can we do that? And the mayor said, well, if you give me $2 million, I'll work everything out for you. And 3 months later, the local community came to the company and said, we haven't got anything. He said, well, we gave money to your mayor. And they said, how stupid are you? Learning these lessons from sort of other development projects, either in the energy sector or other sectors, is going to be crucial in working out that aspect of the social license. And lastly, I would say the factor of low prices. It's one of the things that a lot of people are saying is, will low prices actually slow things down? I think low prices will, change the enthusiasm in the short term for development. But I have to say that in the long term, I feel as though low prices are actually driving innovation in the sector in such a way that it's going to make the development of the Mexican shale resource more likely than in a period of high prices, which sounds perverse logic. But what we're seeing in Texas is that companies are rationalizing their wells. They're focusing on those wells which are really the most productive. They've developed new technologies which hit the resource exactly at the sweet spot. So they go into a shale resource, and they're able to send out their fracking lines directly along the seam. And it's not a straight seam. This is a wavy seam that goes up and down. And they're able to frack in exactly the right places and get the maximum return for their investment. That technology is going to be crucial in developing the shale reserve in Mexico, in particular in an environment where you have much less water. And so for those reasons, I actually feel as though there's reason to be optimistic for Mexico. And I think there's reason for us to expect that there will be an economic spillover impact of a similar magnitude to what we've seen in Texas, but spread out over a much longer period of time. And it's a shame that Tom isn't here with us today, Tom Tunstall, because the Wilson Center, the Universidad Autónoma de Nuevo León, the AEM, and University of Texas San Antonio are carrying out a study right now of the potential economic impact of shale development in northern Mexico. And one of the things that I think we're going to see there is that we will see a big benefit from the development of the industry, but it's going to take time. And so, as with so many other things in Mexico, if you have a long time horizon and you lower your expectations a little bit, you've probably got a great deal of reason to be optimistic. Let me.
Can I hit on a couple of things? Duncan mentioned a couple of great things that I wanted to expand upon. The low prices. The shale operators have become much more efficient. Technology is driving efficiency. They've reduced costs, and they are being very competitive at oil at $60 a barrel where it trades today. And no one ever thought that oil was going to be at $100 a barrel. No one ever thought it'd drop to 40. But since these costs have been implemented and reductions and more efficiency is driving this, we are very competitive at $60, and that's a good thing for everybody. We are competing with the Middle East. We're going to continue to compete with the Middle East, and it's going to be because of efficiencies and technology. A couple other things. Water in Texas. Prior to this year, we were in a drastic drought, and companies in the industry are very cognizant of it. In some, depending on where you are in the shale play, companies use almost 45% of brackish water, leaving the fresh water alone. Some companies have almost up to 20 water recycling programs going on right now in the Eagle Ford Shale. So water recycling is a huge deal for everybody, and it's going to continue. And as Duncan mentioned, the industry uses about 2% total water in Texas. Now, in some parts, it's 4 to 6, depending on the density of the shale play. But overall, 2% is a good number. And lastly, the social license to operate. That's something that we do every day. If you've ever been in an oil and gas company, the first thing they do is have a safety moment. They go over all the safety procedures in that building. So safety not only for their workers, but the residents and the nearby towns where they drill is paramount. They go above and beyond what's required by either the EPA, TCEQ, or the Railroad Commission. It's something that's always top of mind for industry.
Thank you, Omar. We've got about 5 minutes left in this panel for questions from the audience. So I'd like to see if anybody would be adventurous. Gentleman here on the left.
Hello, Juan Antonio Flores. Omar, great presentation. Thank you for this information. One of the dynamics, as I understand, with regard to what could either initiate, instigate, or delay shale play development in Mexico is gas is at what, $3-4 a BTU right now on the market. It's less expensive for Mexico over the near to midterm to import from the United States and from Texas rather than develop its own play. Where does Steer come in on that? What can you tell us about the state of gas exports into Mexico from the Eagle Ford? And I'm particularly interested in knowing where the development of Los Ramones is right now. Are you able to speak?
On the Dos Ramones, I don't. Maybe Duncan. But as far as the demand for natural gas, I think one of the things, and you're right about the prices. One of the things that's going to continue to drive natural gas exports is fast tracking these LNG plants. That's going to be key. You have Cheniere Energy that just got their FERC permit in Corpus, so they're going to start to construction. You've got another. Cheniere's going to build, I think, a second plant just north of Corpus, and it's all because of the natural gas drilling that they have scheduled. As that continues to grow, I think it'll start to make sense for Mexico as well too, because you do have LNG plants proposed in Brownsville, and those pipes are going to go to the border because a lot of the west side of the Eagle Ford Shale is mainly dry gas. And so that area is going to play an important role as Europe and Asia needs more natural gas. You're going to see a lot of that coming from South Texas and hopefully from Mexico as well too.
Yeah, I mean, one of the interesting things of the past few years has been to see how the low price environment in Mexico actually caused a bit of an energy crisis, because the price got so low that both Pemex and the national utility CFE increased their consumption of natural gas for sort of refining purposes for Pemex and for electricity generation purposes for the CFE. so that they squeezed out the market for generation and for industrial purposes. And Pemex at the same time cut back on its gas production because it didn't make any sense to produce it at those low prices. And because of the lack of infrastructure across the border, that meant that the Mexican economy actually began to suffer in terms of competitiveness. Some industrial producers were told at certain times of the day to actually stop their production lines because there wasn't sufficient natural gas available for them to keep going. Now, that situation has been resolved by importing more natural gas through existing pipelines and by building new pipelines. So the Los Ramones pipeline, for example, which will be completed to the center of the country, sort of just south of Zacatecas, will be done by 2018. That's a very, very big and very, very important project. But what's fascinating about it is that Los Ramones will satisfy national demand for natural gas by 2018. But of course, demand for natural gas is going to increase dramatically over the next few years. One of the impacts of the reform process in Mexico is that, as you see, all of these new major investments in the automobile sector, in other forms of manufacturing, demand for natural gas and demand for electricity is going to rise. And of course, at the same time, we have the opening up of the electricity sector in Mexico. So we're seeing new generation being built, and pretty much all of it is natural gas. So that's why it's important that we have other pipeline projects as well, which are going across the border. For example, the Waha pipeline, which is going across in a different part of Texas. Those pipeline projects are going to be very, very important in satisfying demand in different areas of Mexico. One of the things that I get most excited about, though, is the fact that if we begin to see these higher rates of demand for natural gas in Mexico, and if we ever get to that point where natural gas really becomes a widely used transportation fuel, then we begin to see a pickup on the demand side, which drives prices upwards within North America. And at that point, Mexico's natural gas production becomes viable, I would say. A lot of it really does depend upon the gas. But in the short term or in the medium term, gas is going to be treated as a byproduct of the exploration for gas, for oil in the shale fields. And so we are going to see, and one of the challenges is going to be, how do we deal with that? Are we going to flare it, or are we actually going to find some way of channeling that for productive purposes? One of the great things I think we're seeing in Mexico is that there is now possibility of investing in petrochemicals and in new refining plants. And so there's going to be a demand for natural gas there, and it will make sense to actually harness that energy. One of the most remarkable things I think in Mexico that I've heard of was it's about 5 years ago. Pemex was, because of the lower natural gas price, Pemex was actually flaring the equivalent of 1/3 of national consumption of natural gas, of national consumption of natural gas, because it didn't make sense to build the pipes to bring it to land at the same time as there were gas shortages in the country, We have to overcome that. And that's one of the great things about the reform is that it no longer just depends upon Pemex. Now you have a whole bunch of actors that can get in there, and the private sector should be able to work out ways to make this work. Got time for about one more question from the audience, if anybody is interested. Nobody?
I guess I can come up with something. What do you see happening?
Can you just wait for the microphone? The microphone's coming through right here, just so everybody else can hear. Thanks.
What do you see, Miguel Aguirre, what do you see happening with the border communities on both sides as this economy grows? On the Mexican side, is that going to attract more people from Mexico to these, like Reynosa, Hidalgo, and Nuevo Laredo to cross the border and work, and vice versa?
I think you're going to see it vice versa, especially from the workforce side of things. We need the labor. It's got to have to come from somewhere. And whether it's trained on the U.S. side or it's trained on the Mexican side, there's going to have to be that exchange on a daily basis. And if the shale play in Mexico is even half of the economic development that we saw in South Texas, other sectors are going to grow. Retail especially, your schools, your medical is a big one as well too. So there will be a need for all those type of jobs, and we're going to have to work together to allow the labor to flow back and forth freely to not only take these jobs but to meet the demand of the industry, because industry will not wait on locals. For example, in South Texas, you got a couple of operators that run shifts. They've got folks in North Dakota at the Bakken Shelf for 2 weeks, and then they come into the Eagle Ford for 2 weeks because they can't find the skilled labor in Texas. And we're going to probably run into the same situation in Mexico if we don't train our employees or find that skilled labor.
It's remarkable when you're down in South Texas, you come across a veritable United Nations of oil workers down there. People speaking so many different languages, and with the answer should be obvious, which is that if Mexico is indeed producing around 80,000 engineers a year, that could be a huge source. Now, they're not petroleum engineers, so you're going to have to engage in some kind of sort of retraining or extra education on top of that. But I think that's one of the most encouraging things that you see out of the bilateral agenda right now between Mexico and the United States, the FOBESI. And the FOBESI actually is the bilateral forum on higher education is actually looking at programs specifically for border communities. They've identified the border as being unique and different in some way, and energy is of course a part of that. And we have to think way beyond universities as well. I mean, one of the most exciting things in Texas is what's going on between the oil industry and community colleges. There's a shortage of welders. There's a shortage of electricians. We need to focus on those vocational skills. Mexico does not have a community college system. That's one of the issues that I think we really need to focus on a bilateral basis as well.
And you're seeing that in Laredo. Laredo Community College has a huge program for the oil and gas industry, as does Sol Russ in Eagle Pass. So you've got some infrastructure already along the border. It's just expanding that because that is a huge demand, as Duncan mentioned.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking Omar Garcia.
Thank you very much. Nice job.
Chris, are we ready for our next panel? I will, absolutely. And listen, I want to... okay. So we're taking a short break till 2:35.
Thank you.